Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. We are back with hot takes. Our first one in a long while came out last week, so doing this every week in case you didn't know the drill. Let's go ahead and get into it. Also, I am doing Discord hot takes over on the Little Rusty Buckets channel, so if you want to more or less guarantee that your take gets responded to, check out our Patreon, join the Discord, put your takes in there. You get it, but let's move on. From Urban Delva, Steph Curry is closer to Michael Jordan than LeBron is. When people mention the boxes that Jordan checks over LeBron, Steph checks those boxes over LeBron as well. Do you want to be a little bit more specific about that? Because I'm not sure. The boxes that Jordan checks, having more championships, having more finals MVPs, having more MVPs, Steph doesn't check any of those boxes. There isn't more all-NBA selections. There isn't more fucking anything. Three-pointers. He's hit way more three-pointers than Michael Jordan and LeBron did, but that's it. I really don't know what your justification for that could possibly be. From SD's writer, Wilt averaged 30 and 28 in the regular season and 26 and 28 in the playoffs against Russell. You know absolutely nothing about basketball. Well, why don't I teach you some shit about basketball as someone who knows absolutely nothing about basketball? My point was that Bill Russell makes Wilt Chamberlain's numbers drop substantially from his standard. Yes, Wilt averaged 30 and 28 in the regular season and 26 and 28 against Russell in the playoffs. You're already highlighting right there how his scoring numbers go down in the playoffs by context, but they also go down in the regular season matchups, and they're down even more substantially from what he averages overall. So we'll just go through this real quick because the receipts are there. Rookie year, Wilt Chamberlain averages 37.5 points per game. Then in the second round against Wilt Chamberlain, or against Bill Russell, those numbers drop to 30.5 points per game, a 7-point per game drop in the playoffs. Wow, look at that. That's the first year. Second year, 38.5 points per game. Then we get to the first round. Oh, sorry, this is just the Syracuse Nationals. He lost to the fucking Syracuse Nationals in 1961. So we'll move on to 62, 50.4 points per game. Then he plays 7 games against Bill Russell, loses game 7 by 2 fucking points, while he averages 33.6 points per game, 17 less than he averaged in the regular season. Then we get to 63, and I believe the Warriors didn't make the playoffs this year, despite the fact that he averaged 45 points per game. The year after that, he gets the San Francisco Warriors to the finals in 1964, 29 points per game. So, yes, a 7-point per game drop-off once again. Then we get to 1965. That one's a little bit of a weird one because he averaged 39 with the Warriors and then 30 with the Sixers. But we will still look at the difference. 30 versus the 30 on the Sixers, and then down to, well, he averaged 30 in this series. Look at you, Wilt. In 1965, you finally put up your same scoring average. And then 1966, 33.5 points per game. And then in the first round, in a 5-game gentleman's sweep, he averages 28 points per game in that series. So yes, Wilt puts up great numbers against Bill Russell because Wilt always puts up great numbers no matter what. It's kind of hard to not put up impressive counting stats when you average 38 for an entire 6-year stretch. My point, he falls off significantly in terms of his ability to put up points when defended by the best fucking defender of his generation. So you know absolutely nothing about basketball, dickweed. From Niles Montblair, It's okay to be a Thunder hater. SGA is undoubtedly a generational talent and not a free throw merchant. However, they're just not fun to watch. Their offense is very ISO heavy and seems predicated on role player shooting variance. Also, a lot of the time, their defense just feels like they're hacking away at the offense and getting away with it. Love that take because it's never the same thing that has always ever been said about great defenses. This is just personal perception of what it's like to watch them. I won't deny that the Thunder get away with fouls a lot. Of course they do. Any aggressive defense ever has done that. But like, if you're mad at the fact that the ruling and officiating in that realm is inconsistent, I think it's a little ridiculous to project that explicitly on the Thunder because that has been the way that it has worked since basketball began. The big issue that I have with people hating on the Thunder, you can hate on the Thunder. The issue is that a lot of people just say incorrect things about the Thunder. A lot of people who I see hate on the Thunder say shit that very clearly indicates that they did not watch the Thunder that much. And it's specifically the free throw merchant thing. Got a lot of pushback on my take at the very end about why that's stupid, and I got so many people who commented like, he is great, but he's also a free throw merchant. That's not how that term is used pretty much universally. The merchant implication is that he is relying upon the fouls to be good. That is the reason that people said he should not be MVP, because he's grifting his way there when that could not be more horseshit. I'm fine with you hating on the Thunder. However, what upsets me the most is that they didn't really do anything to deserve it. People just love hating on young teams that are cringe or whatever the fuck. It's stupid, and it's one thing after a championship. The fact that the hate train started before they even crossed that finish line pissed me off. People were not hating on the Warriors until after they won their championship. Same logic should apply here, but that take is not actually what was most interesting to me, because the PS is much more interesting. People act like Sam is the most giga-brain GM ever when he was handed one of the greatest scorers of the generation and 18 million picks for an old Paul George. That also makes me a hater. Like, yeah, any GM could make a championship team given that. Not to mention the Caruso-Josh Giddey trade. The problem with this argument is you could use it for any GM ever who was good at his job, because the best GMs get trades that are absolute fleeces, that are absolute home runs. Yeah, the Alex Caruso, Josh Giddey trade, he was taking advantage of the Bulls being stupid, but guess what? You can make that argument for every fucking GM ever. Like, what's a great one? Oh, the goddamn Showtime Lakers. They got James Worthy in the middle of their peak because guess what? Jerry West fucked over what's his dumbass's name? Phil Stephian. That's how it works. They were handed the greatest scorer of the generation, or he thought Shai Gilgeous would be good, so he asked for the best young player in a trade for a star player. That's not being handed that, or the 18 million picks. That was a trade that made sense at the time. Universally, people said, okay, this trade makes sense because it also meant Kawhi Leonard was heading to Clippers. Fuck. That is reductive. It is hindsight. And people acting like the Paul George trade was just this all-time terrible deal. It's okay for you to say that in hindsight, but to act like it didn't make Sam a great GM to pull off that deal, to get those picks, to get the guy who was a good rookie, but by no means had any kind of indicator that he was going to be one of the greatest scorers of his generation. Like, you're using hindsight. He is absolutely one of the best GMs ever. He just is. It was his plan. Yes, he had Russell Westbrook and Paul George to trade away, but plenty of teams have blown it up and traded away their two best players and not gotten even half of the asset pool that Sam Presti managed to pull off because he's a good fucking GM. Sorry to tell you. Now that it's okay to be a Thunder hater. I agree with that. The reasons should be more legitimate than what I hear, but that's fair. Sam Presti is indeed I wouldn't use the term gigabrain because it's fucking lame, but he is indeed a great, brilliant GM, and he deserves all of that praise. He deserves praise for the Josh Giddey Caruso trade because most dumbass general managers in the league would have been like, oh, Josh Giddey was a massive fucking zero and a huge detriment to our team in the playoffs, but he's still young, which I could go on a whole rant about why that argument pisses me off, because people act like anybody under the age of 24 could be Michael Jordan. You just got to give it time. No, he recognized that Josh Giddey had no fucking business on this team, and then he got him off of it. That's what a great GM does. Rudy asked me, what do you think about the idea that he's the most valuable free agent in the near future? Sam Presti is not going anywhere. He is not retiring on his project. He's going to see it through. That's insane to me. That would be so many levels of stupid on his part. I don't think he would do that. From Bebo69, YouTubers that follow worse teams make objectively better YouTubers in terms of unbiased content. I actually wanted to specifically highlight some of the replies here because like this guy said, I don't want to watch Cone because I don't want to get stuck in an echo chamber. I feel like Cone is very good at being neutral enough about his team, but I've also never had to deal with the consequence of like talking about a team that's good and then also that I'm like very strongly rooting for. I'll always pick a team pretty much every playoff run to be like the team that I'm rooting for, and in pretty much every series, just because it makes it more fun. But like, I'm not that actively invested in it, certainly not blinded by the bias of it. But I do understand where you're coming from. I just think a lot of the people in the YouTube space who are biased about their team know it and say as much as they can. I even do that with the Bulls, although I'm saying I'm biased while I talk about how shit they are. But yeah, Kenny, also a Bulls fan, shout out to him. Funky is a Celtics fan, which means he loved a great team, so it's not like that means he's unbiased either, but whatever. I get where you're coming from, though. Good news, my team's never gonna be fucking good, so I'll be a great YouTuber forever. From Chris Is Unclely Mad. Indiana's window closed just as quickly as it opened. I think it depends on how Tyrese Halliburton recovers from his Achilles tear. If he comes back as a similar player, I think they can be right back into that window. But if he isn't, then I don't. I also saw a few Pacers fans in my Eastern Conference video talking about like they can still be a contender in the East without Tyrese Halliburton. I am very doubtful. That is pushing it a lot. I recognize the Pacers were a very successful egalitarian team, a very successful everybody plays their part team, but like I don't think you can just replace Tyrese Halliburton, especially throughout a regular season. 20 points a game on a horrible team is so different than on a winning team. It's crazy. That's from Ron Tron. I agree. The thing is, though, 20 points per game isn't even like great anymore. There's like 50 dudes who average 20 points per game. It's not that big of a deal to average 20. But it's about efficiency for me. Like if you're putting up an extremely efficient 20 points per game on a horrible team, that might not mean that you can average 20 on a good team, but it does mean that you probably deserve more scoring opportunity when on a good team. Like Quentin Grimes as the perfect example for this, averaged 20 points on crazy efficiency for the Philadelphia 76ers while having multiple games where he was the number one focus of the defense. Like 20 points per game on a horrible team, often if you're a 20 point per game scorer on a horrible team, it means you're dealing with like crazy pressure from the defense, way more than that type of player on a good team. So like I think this is true, but it's also like a case-by-case basis. It's always a case-by-case basis. Like, it's not like everyone who put up 20 on a bad team is a fraud, because plenty of people put up 20 on a bad team and then put up 20 on a good team. It's just a matter of the circumstances. In fact, a good team can benefit your scoring game significantly. Maybe not necessarily in the total production, because if you're in a context where it's just like somebody has to shoot the fucking ball, that's a little bit different. But there's also plenty of benefits to come to your scoring from playing on a good team. Defense not paying as much attention to you, not giving you as much of the focus. and other players being able to draw that attention to create space for you. Like, yeah, being on a bad team is a great way to put up 20 points per game. But if you're like a play finisher or just the right archetype of player who's mainly built to be a second option, you will arguably thrive more as a scorer on those teams. Maybe less points per game, but better scoring, and that's what's more important. From Bosch, Rusty is a genius. Either intentionally or unintentionally, he has made a win-win situation with his Josh Giddey take. Either Rusty is right, Giddey plays like he did in the first half of the year and is trash, proving Rusty was right and allowing him to say, I told you so, or Giddey's hot streak for the last 20 games is not just a fluke, and he plays like a walking triple-double. 21, 11, and 9 on 50, 45, 80 splits. If this is the case, Rusty's favorite team gets a very good 22-year-old, oh no, poor Rusty, yet another win. And in either situation, whether Rusty says, I told you so, or I was wrong, he will get a load of views, so it's really a win-win-win situation. Genius. You have figured out the formula. This is why the last video, when there was a take that was like, YouTubers hate admitting when they're wrong, but love talking about when they're right. Actually, I was wrong about blank title does very well, and at the end of the day, that is the thing that matters for employing me. So yes, having a strong take, if it ages poorly or ages well, does result in good stuff. I actually think it's better if it ages poorly, because I was wrong is a negativity skew versus I was right, this guy sucks. That's also negative, but I don't know. People are less inclined to watch that. But as for the Josh Giddey stuff specifically, yeah, I guess you could say that that's true anytime I say a Bulls player is going to be bad, though. I also don't think that Josh Giddey, even if he puts up those numbers, will be, I know it's crazy to say a 20-point triple-double won't be that impactful, but if that's going to be your number one guy, okay. Like, I cannot tell you how wrong I would be if Josh Giddey would actually be the best player on this team and on a level that is good and important and substantial. Like, maybe he puts up those numbers and the Bulls win 44 games. That wouldn't even be I was wrong, really, because it's all about the impact at the end of the day. However, if he shot 45% from three all year, maybe not so much. But at the end of the day, I still don't think it's gonna fucking happen. So I can't help but saying it. But yes, technically it would be a win-win. But also, I'm kind of de-invested in the Chicago Bulls anyways. Last year is the least that I have ever watched them since doing this job, and it's probably going to be even less next year. From IF Moki, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but it really annoys me that people act like you can only be a fan of one thing at a time. My favorite player right now is Jokic, yet people look at me sideways when I say I enjoy watching people like SGA2 and admit that they are amazing. Why can't we just like basketball? Yeah, that is the thing that infuriated me about the MVP debate in the last year. Why do I have to be like on one side or the other? Because suddenly, because I believed Shea should be MVP, it meant I was a Nikola Jokic hater, despite being a staunch supporter basically his entire fucking career. So yes, you are preaching to the choir. It pisses me off to no end. And it's very frustrating being told that you do not like a player or a team when you do. Like, stop telling me what I like or do not like. You don't fucking know me. I'll tell you when I like or don't like something. I love to do that. Every time I talk about a player I don't like, I'm like, I don't like this player, but like, what do you want from me? From Rand M, Dennis Rodman has gone from being an underrated during his playing days to now being overrated. He is not a top 75 player of all time. He was a locker room cancer who was traded twice in his prime, a liability on one side of the ball, was never better than the third best player on any of his championship teams, was an all-star only twice, and he never sniffed the MVP discussion. Top 10 only once in his career. I'm surprised that happened ever. Even his rebounding is overrated. He is often referred to as being the greatest rebounder ever, but his 23rd all-time. Yes, he was an all-time rebounder and obviously is in the Hall of Fame, but a top 75 player, no chance. Well, first of all, I don't think the all-time ranking in rebounds is substantial because Dennis Rodman just played a shorter career than a lot of the dudes who were above him. And I'm pretty sure he has like a 5-year streak of leading the league in rebounds. Oh my God, even longer than that. He has a 7-year stretch where he averages 16.7 rebounds per game. And it's also a height thing because he's 6'7". It's relative. He is, in terms, like, there is no one his height who has led the league in rebounds 7 times, let alone fucking 7 times in a row. It's actually crazy how good he was at rebounding. And you also said that he was an offensive zero, a liability on one side of the ball. I'm not saying there were not negative consequences of the fact that he wasn't much of a scorer, but 5.8 offensive rebounds per game out of one player, especially in the 90s, not a lot was expected offensively out of your bigs. Like, usually one of them would be good and one of them would not. Like, the inability to shoot, the lack of particularly good finishing at the basket, like, that's not really that big of a deal in the context of that era. So I absolutely think he has a case for being the greatest rebounder ever. My personal pick for that is Moses Malone, but Rodman is a valid choice. As for the locker room cancer thing, I think it's fine that that happened at the end of his Pistons career. I'm pretty sure that's why he got traded for there, but I know for a fact he was in San Antonio, and that's why he got kicked out there. He also had a bad time in LA. So maybe he didn't have that bad of an ending to his Pistons time, but I feel like he did. But I know for a fact Greg Popovich fucking hated Dennis Rodman with every fiber of his being. So that part was true. But he's an all-time defender. He's an all-time rebounder. But I do agree, I wouldn't say he's a top 75 player. However, of all the players who are in the NBA's official top 75, he is far from the first one who I'd be removing. There's a bunch of players from the fucking segregation era who do not deserve to be on that list. This pissed me off. Rusty leaning into the Luka Is Fat narrative. The mainstream media got into even his head. First of all, I said the fat thing, the hookah Luka shit, like 5% serious. Like, Luka has definitely been in not his best shape at different points, especially if you compare what he looks like now to what he did the first couple of years of his career. But I don't really care, even if Luka is fat. Like, I've been the guy who's been saying the whole time about him being traded, who cares if he's fat if he leads you to the finals? But he could definitely stand to be in slightly better shape, and the rumor has it that he has been doing that in this offseason, which is probably going to help his MVP chances, which was the title take of the last one. But no, I'm not leaning into the narrative. I talked about it. There is a difference. This one's good from Knuckles. I think the only person that is deserving of being called a flopper is Joel Embiid. He is a monster of a human being flailing like a fish that could potentially harm other players. Sure, it can happen with others flopping, but it's much more likely with a 7-foot, 275-pound human doing it. I'm pretty sure Joel Embiid was like 300 pounds, honestly, but yeah, I say was. He's still playing, technically. But this has been my take for the longest time. I really don't mind guards, especially shorter guards, being foul merchants. Like, you're not really going to hear me giving Trae Young or Jalen Brunson too much shit for it, because when you're that size, scoring at a high volume is really difficult. With James Harden and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's less so the case because they're tall guards and they're very strong, especially James Harden. Easily the most egregious foul baiting that has existed in the NBA's history to me is that of Joel Embiid's, because Joel Embiid, the argument that you do not need to do that could not be more applicable to Joel Embiid, because as you mentioned, he's the biggest fucking guy on the floor. He's incredibly strong. He has a ton of touch. He's an extremely skilled post scorer. Like, you don't need to do that nearly as much as he does it. He still gets to the line like half of the time completely legitimately, but his volume of foul baiting just on the eye test alone feels much higher than Shea for sure. And I don't know, it's probably not higher than Harden, but because of the size difference, it just feels more substantial. We're going to move on to the final take of the video from Trayman Lee. Shaq is overrated, only good because of his size, but as an overall player, he is very average. He wouldn't survive in today's era due to his lack of touch, lack of shooting, and due to his size, he wouldn't survive foul out every game. When he got older, he was terrible and bounced around. I don't understand the hype around him because all he did was use his unnatural size to bully people, but his skill was rather average. Kendrick Perkins is what Shaq would be like in the modern NBA. Wow. This is the same fucking argument people use against Giannis, and you want to know who's pretty good in the NBA? Giannis. Yeah, Shaq can bully everyone out of the way, and that still applies today. Yeah, maybe he'll get more offensive foul calls, but still more often than you're allowed to be physical, even still. Like you're vastly overrating how different the game is. Like, would his defense be problematic? Well, if we're talking about Magic Shaq, I don't think so. We're talking about Lakers Shaq, sure. I don't think he'd foul out every game. I don't know why that necessarily would be the case. Yeah, if you teleport Shaq from the year 2000 to right now, his tendencies will probably be a little off base with what the game is. But when you grow up, in the modern context, you'll have the modern knowledge. And also, he had touch. The dude had an exceptional hook shot. He was very efficient in that range. So he did have plenty of touch. You are incorrect that he had a lack of touch. Obviously, he couldn't shoot, but Giannis can't shoot. Giannis still averages 30 for the last 5 years. That's no. He would be Kendrick Perkins. You're out of your fucking mind. You're out of your fucking mind. That's a crazy ass take. I'll give you guys this. You brought the heat. Some truly batshit takes in this one. Steph is better than LeBron. Shaq is a size merchant. And what was the other one? Sam Presti isn't even a good GM. Thank you. Sometimes you guys fill this shit up with a bunch of hot takes that aren't hot. This was hot, so that's what I'm looking for. Thank you so much to all the people who responded, except for that guy who said I didn't know ball. But that is it. Shout out to Nick for editing this video, and goodbye.